Alright guys, so initially I wasn't going to do a video on this, but more and more information keeps coming out about some things here that seem to be related, and so I decided I wanted to go ahead and touch upon this issue. Um, if any of you out there watching are make videos, uh, then you'll understand the issue that I just went through and how it actually turned out to be, I guess, a good thing. I just found it interesting. I was making a video previously about what I'm going to discuss with you guys right now, and it was a little bit lengthy, maybe like 15 minutes or so. And once I got to the end, my screen capture software just crashed and I lost everything. And this happens every once in a while. It's usually not that big of a deal, unless it's something that's a little bit longer and then it's pretty aggravating. But actually, in this particular instance, something happened right towards the end that actually made me glad that it happened, because I actually saw a new piece of information related to what I want to discuss with you guys that actually just popped up, and that always seems to happen. It seems like the stuff just never stops coming in. But as you can see here, Russia wants to fly over the U.S. with advanced digital camera. Okay. Um, as some of you may or may not have heard, it was just like a month or so ago that we found out that Russia was already flying over America and doing the same type of deal. And it looks like that they want to do it again. America and Russia and many other countries are part of what's called an Open Skies Treaty. And according to U.S. officials, Russia is kind of taking advantage of the situation. And so anyways, Russia is going to request permission to do their flight over the U.S. with their advanced digital camera again here shortly. Now, the balance of checks in this treaty is that all countries that are involved in this, right? Any one country who wants to go fly over another country, pre-announced and set up, can go gather all this information. The thing is when they gather all this information, they have to share this information with everybody else that's in the treaty. Now, you and I both know that there's probably a good chance that when people are going and making these flights and then turning this information over to the treaty to be released to all the members, chances are there's a good chunk of information that they are keeping to themselves and not giving to the rest of the treaty membering countries. So I find it interesting that Russia is doing this again. Now, there has been some kind of big push with this whole military game worldwide that's been going on quite a bit lately. Now, as we've all heard, Russia was threatening to use nukes over in the Middle East. And that's when Saudi Arabia came out and finally announced something to the world, which some of us already knew, but a lot of people did not, is that they already had their own nukes and they were prepared to use them. Right? And if you just go back and you look over the past, say, 12 to 18 months, you will see that there's a great number of countries who have been doing nuclear missile tests. Now, I wish there was somebody out there who had a site who could keep track of this information so we could just pull it right up and look at it. And perhaps the site is already out there. I have looked. I have not found one. If you guys can, please link it to me in my comments. I would be quite interested to have this information available to me. But as we can see, just right off the top of my head, the United States, Russia, North Korea, China, India, Pakistan, all for sure have done nuclear tests in probably like the past 12 to 18 months. Not to mention all of these other nations who may or may not have done nuclear missile tests, that have had nuclear missile drills, just like this massive one that we heard going down in England a while back. All right, and let's not forget all of these major military drills that were going on this past year. Jade Helm 15 here in Texas, and there was a whole bunch of other ones going on worldwide. Okay, and we still have this big, huge 350,000 troop drill that's about to take place right over here by where this war in Syria is going on. And it's supposed to last for 18 days. So I found it interesting as well that while this is going on, that they're calling for a ceasefire that's going to happen, on the 25th, I believe it is. Although they make it a point to point out that even though there's going to be a ceasefire, ISIS targets are still going to get bombed. And as we know, 90% of those, maybe 95%, will get hit by Russia, and then like 3 or 4% will get hit by America. Obviously, our two nations have a very different view of how they want things to play out over there in the Middle East. America is supporting ISIS, they're funding ISIS, they're militarizing ISIS. They want to get Assad out of power. Whereas Russia just wants to get ISIS out and keep Assad in power to keep these terrorists in check, much like Saddam Hussein did before we went and ousted him out of office and destabilized the whole region. Because even though we know that this was a very bad man, he kept the terrorist in line because he was worse. Anything that they could think of doing, he would do worse. No one could understand how this man was using, mustard gas and all of this stuff on his own people. And so the American people rallied behind the American military going and taking this man out of power. But we were fooled, because none of us knew that what Saddam Hussein was really doing was keeping these ISIS people in check. And it's sometimes, to keep bad people in check, they have to know that you're willing to do much worse. Since this has happened, the whole region has been destabilized. And now they're using this immigration process all over the world to destabilize other regions. So, with all of this going on, we heard about the situation with the nuclear weapons over here in Saudi Arabia, right? Now, let's go over here, because right as I was looking at that, I found this right when my other video crashed. And it turns out, now, Vladimir Putin is threatening Turkey with tactical nukes. Okay? So this is basically the second time he's threatened to use nukes in, like a week or two? If that? And over here, at the same time, we got these missiles and advanced radar systems going on over with this, these islands and this disputed island sea chain over there in China, right? And they're militarizing their stuff up over there. North Korea's been testing nukes like crazy. Once again, they're pretending like they're trying to make some kind of peace deal with North Korea. But as I want to point out, the U.S. government has been fooling us once again for a very long time. A lot of us were under the impression, because quote-unquote America won the Cold War, that Russia was just basically this third world country that basically had no military, that we didn't even have to worry about. And then lo and behold, out of the middle of nowhere, it turns out not only they're not a little nobody that we have to worry about, but they're actually a formidable force that, from every indication that the government is giving the American people at every turn, is that they are way more advanced than we are, and we don't have a chance in hell of fighting them. Now, this isn't my opinion. But it seems to me that every story that we get from mainstream media is telling us about all these advanced weapon systems they have, and all this EMP, and all this other nuclear technology, and better planes, and all this stuff, and that we just can't compete anymore. Now, maybe that's propaganda as well, but I'm just telling y'all what I hear, and I'm assuming that you guys hear the same thing. Now, it occurs to me, with all this information that we've been getting about Russia for all this time, that it's quite possible that we may have been getting fed the same propaganda about North Korea that we have been getting fed about Russia. Now, obviously, the leaders in North Korea are some pretty unstable dudes. And they say some pretty ludicrous things sometimes. I get that. But that does not mean that it is not possible that, once again, we've been getting fed propaganda from our government that these guys are just this little nothing country, and we don't have anything to worry about. Because it seems like every time they have a nuclear test, they have some kind of story come out talking about what a big disaster it was, or how it was a hoax, or none of this really happened, right? But what if that's all propaganda, and they're all good to go, and they're all got technology better than ours too, and they just don't want the American people to know. So I find it interesting, all this stuff going on. And back to this treaty, right? Because they have this 350,000 drill going on for 18 days. Is this treaty really just a measure to buy times for this quote-unquote 18-day drill that's gearing up for what looks like an invasion? Is this just a political ploy against the people, a psyop, just to buy some time? That way they can set up their assets in order to do a full invasion and begin the all-out start of World War III? I don't know. But with all of these things going on, it's kind of hard to ignore that Russia wants to fly over our skies again with all of this nuclear stuff going on all over the world. Right? And as I showed you guys, if you haven't, you can go look to my other video, and I'll show you this right here. Okay. This gentleman works for a radio station in the New York area, and he claims that governments in the U.S. and the United Kingdom have been sending out messages to their local media to prepare for nuclear strikes. You know, basically, this automated message is going to play to the American people once the nukes are here or on their way, letting them know what they should do. Now, what's interesting about the one in the United States, and the reason why I brought it to people's attention, is because it actually tells you these specific cities that are going to be hit. I don't recall them off the top of my head, but it might be noteworthy for somebody to write them down or something and keep track of what's going on in these cities. But it seemed very specific. I don't know how often they release these prepackaged set of emergency messages to local media for people to prepare for nuclear strikes, but I would imagine that it's not that terribly often, and I would doubt that it's not this incredibly specific. That's why I have a hard time dismissing it, because of the specificity of it. But, well, actually, what I'm wondering, and what I'm guessing, is if these were released to the New York media because they expect a strike in New York City, I believe is a city they mentioned. I haven't listened to the video in a couple of days, but I'm guessing the cities and the other areas that were mentioned as well may also be targets. Right? So I just want to point out all this stuff is going on at the same time. So I'm not really sure if this means anything and if there's any real dots to connect here. I'd very much like to think that we're in a day and age in the planet where no one would ever use a nuclear weapon ever again. But it seems more and more evident that they have every intention and possibly the pre-planning to do this for quite some time now. So for the fact that the second time in just a couple of weeks, Russia's doing a nuclear test, China's setting up missile defense systems, North Korea's setting off nukes, Saudi Arabia's telling you they got nukes, United States is testing nukes, everybody seems to be doing something that has to do with nukes, all at the same time. And I have a hard time believing, just like everything else, that it's a big honking coincidence. I don't know exactly what to make of this, but I just wanted to show you guys all this information that I have been seeing, and I wanted to share it with you, and I would very much like it if you gave me your thoughts on the subject. Thank you for listening. You guys take care. I will talk to y'all again soon.